Texas was not born solely from the dreams of pioneers. It emerged from a river of tears and blood, watered by two peoples who believed, each in their own way, that they were fighting for the right to live. This is the story that is not found in the books of glory. This is the memory that still whispers in the wind that sweeps across the Chihuahua Desert and sways the oak trees of the Central Hills. The story of Fallen Thunder, a Comanche warrior, and Captain Samuel Holt, a man torn between the law and his own conscience. A story of war and the strange truce that was born when both realized that the real enemy was someone else. The year was 1874. The so-called Red River War was reaching its climax of iron and fire. The Comanches, Kiowas, and Cheyennes, the last lords of the Great Plains, saw their world crumbling. The buffalo, their source of life, were being slaughtered by the thousands by leather hunters. Railroads cut through the belly of the earth like steel scars. And the settlers, driven by a hunger for land that knew no bounds, advanced further and further west, armed with repeating rifles and an unshakable certainty of destiny. On the other hand, cowboys and frontier soldiers were not simply villains in a melodrama. They were rough men, many fleeing a difficult past, others dreaming of a piece of land to call their own. They struggled against a relentless climate, overwhelming loneliness, and the constant shadow of death. They saw the Indian attacks not as resistance, but a senseless cruelty, a threat to the fragile thread of civilization they were trying to weave. Thunder Falls, Narcano in his language, was not an impetuous young warrior. He was over 40 winters old. His eyes, deep as canyons, had seen the tribe shrink from a powerful nomadic nation to a group of starving families, cornered in ever smaller reservations. He led a group of resistors, the Noconi, the Wanderers. They did not fight for glory, but for the survival of their children. For every sacred tree felled, for every stream polluted by cattle, a wound opened in his soul. Samuel Holt, captain of the Texas Rangers, was a man of the law. Raised on stories of massacres and settlements, he had sworn to protect his people. But years on the frontier had planted a seed of doubt. He had seen the greed of land speculators, the betrayal of treaties torn up before the ink was dry, and the unnecessary brutality of some of his own men. War, for him, had become a dirty and dishonorable work. The conflict reached a boiling point in the summer of that year. After an attack on a Comanche camp where women and children were killed by mercenaries disguised as rangers, Thunder Falls swore revenge. His target, Fort Richardson, the settlers' stronghold in the Brazos region. Samuel Holt, meanwhile, was ordered to intercept and neutralize Fallen Thunder's group at any cost. The chase lasted for weeks. They crossed sweltering canyons where the air shimmered with heat and open plains swept by hailstorms. It was during one of these storms, in a place called Bloody Shadows Canyon, that the two groups met, not in combat, but in fleeing the same fury in nature. The horses, terrified, ran wild. Men on both sides were thrown from their mounts. Separated from their groups, Fallen Thunder and Samuel Holt found refuge in the same small cave, a crack in the rock dripping with water. There, under the pale light of lightning, they came face to face, rifles clogged with mud, exhausted to the bone. What followed was not a battle, but a tense 12-hour vigil. As the storm raged outside, the two men, sharing the same dry space, began to talk. At first it was disjointed, with gestures and scattered words.
Samuel knew a few phrases in Comanche. Thunder Falls understood more English than he let on. Samuel spoke of his family killed by disease in Tennessee, of the loneliness that had brought him to the West. Thunder Falls spoke of his children, of one who had died of the white man's cough, and of the youngest whose dream was to ride a horse as fast as the wind. Samuel showed him a locket with a picture of his late wife. Thunder Falls, after a long silence, sang a low song, a melody to lull his children to sleep. That was when Samuel, looking at Falling Thunder's knife, recognized the carving on the handle. That design, an eagle on a cactus, I've seen that before. In an attack on a supply train months ago, there was a box of medical supplies. They had all been stolen except for the bandages and quinine. They had been left behind. At that moment, a flash of understanding brighter than any lightning crossed Samuel's mind. He remembered the reports that always portrayed the savages as cruel for no reason. He remembered the order to attack the camp given by the corrupt land agent Elijah Grant, who coveted that very area for his cattle. He remembered the bullets supplied by Grant that often misfired. Was he the real architect of the conflict, fueling hatred on both sides to take over the most fertile lands? At dawn, the storm had passed. The sun rose, bathing the valley in shades of gold and crimson. The two men left the cave. In the valley below, their warriors and rangers faced each other, tense, ready to engage in the final battle. Thunder Falls and Samuel Hope descended the slope side by side. Samuel Hope shouted to his men, "Lower your weapons. The spear must rest today." The scene was of disbelief. The two leaders met in the middle of the field, between the two groups. In a low voice, Samuel told him of his suspicions about Grant. Thunder Falls confirmed it. The agent had promised supplies in exchange for attacks on the farms of settlers who refused to sell his land to him. It was a double game, fueling hatred and revenge in an endless cycle. On that day, there was no battle at Red River. There was an agreement, fragile as a spider's web in the frost, but real nonetheless. Samuel Holt and his rangers would turn not against the Comanches, but against the real predator, the corrupt system of agents and speculators. Thunder Falls agreed to cease attacks on peaceful settlers, directing his resistance towards exposing the lies. Of course, peace did not come overnight. The war between cowboys and Indians in Texas still raged for some time, driven by deeper hatreds and greater forces. Thunder Falls and Samuel Holt paid a price for their truce. They were seen as traitors by some of their own people. But in that region, along the Red River, something changed. Settlers began to find packages of dried venison in their barns on harsh winter nights. Wounded Comanche warriors were sometimes left at the fort's door, where Samuel's doctor treated them. Agent Elijah Grant was exposed, arrested, and his schemes dismantled, not by an army, but the strange alliance between a ranger and a warrior chief. We were mirrors of each other, Falling Thunder and I, each seeing in the other the monster we were told to fear. But deep down, we were just fathers, protectors, men trying to understand a world that was changing too fast. The wind belongs neither to the Comanche nor the white man. The land has no owner. We were like two male deer fighting to the death over a drying stream, while the hunter, hidden in the trees, aimed his gun at us both. The history of the Old West is written by the victors, filled with heroes on one side and villains on the other. But the truth, as always, dwells in the shadows and whispers. It lives on in the memory of Samuel Holt's grandson, who inherited the medallion in the story, and the granddaughter of Thunder Falls, who preserves her grandfather's song and name. It reminds us that behind every Indian and every cowboy was a complex human being. Fear, courage, love for family, a deep attachment to the land, and that sometimes on the most barren battlefield, the only thing that could stop the bloodshed was the recognition of humanity in the face of the enemy.